It is another episode of the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Wes Cheng alongside Brad Bierman. Thanks so much for joining us on this Friday, May 23rd, 2025. So much to talk about as always, and we begin today's show with the Syracuse Lacrosse team. Brad, Syracuse will play in the Final Four for the first time since the 2013 season. Do you like their chances this weekend of returning home with their first NCAA title since 2009?
Well, Wes, certainly a dozen years is an eternity for a program like Syracuse, at one time with 22 consecutive Final Four appearances, to miss out on the national semifinals. So Gary Gait in 4 seasons has gotten Syracuse back. And I think that, first of all, has to have some recognition, because you come into the program that was floundering, let's face it, at the end of the John Desko era in postseason play, couldn't get past the second round. And Gait had to rebuild from scratch in that losing season back in his first year in 2022, and then getting a winning season, finally making it back to the NCAA last year and evolving to get to the championship weekend this season. So certainly that accomplishment has to stand out. Now, Maryland, the opponent in the semifinal Saturday, that's going to be the interesting story, because they've won 7 in a row in the series, and Gary Gait wanted to play them, Wes, when he came back to lead the program, called up John Tillman and said, let's schedule home-and-home series, and that's what they've done the last 4 years, but it's been all Maryland. Now, Gait mentioned Tuesday in his media call heading into this weekend's games that the Syracuse offense has been successful against Maryland for the most part in those last 4 games, including 10 goals back in 2022 when Syracuse only won 4 games the entire season. So he's optimistic from that standpoint that offensive coordinator Pat March is going to figure it out. He's going to make the adjustments necessary. And I think those adjustments are going to have to play into patience, really getting key shots in this game. Terp goalie McNary is really a good, graduate student, veteran player, and he was successful in the second half of the February meeting when Maryland beat Syracuse 11-7. So I think patience, getting good shots on goal, and testing the goalie both high and low is going to be key. And I mentioned for the last couple of years, Wes, in the postseason NCAA tournament games, everything is so even. Comes down to shots hitting the goalpost, good shots on goal, bad luck, officials' calls, etc. So patience and really having to play a clean game overall, both offensively and defensively, winning the face-offs, good goalie play. That's what Syracuse is going to need to get over this hump.
So, Brad, to answer the original question, no, I don't see Syracuse winning title number 11 this weekend. Maryland has been a really difficult matchup for Syracuse. They've won 7 in a row against the Orange. It's hard to snap that kind of losing streak in the NCAA tournament. So that's first off. But Gary Gait, he had a quote after Syracuse's loss in North Carolina in the season finale, and it was an interesting one. He was talking about getting ready for the ACC tournament, which they obviously ended up winning, and he said on playing Notre Dame, quote, "What do you have to lose?" end quote. And since that quote, Syracuse hasn't lost, and they won 4 games by a combined 5 goals. And in some ways, I think they're playing with house money here, because if they lose, it's a successful season. They've gone to the Final Four for the first time in a dozen years in just the 3rd year of the Gary Gait era. Everything's going on, trending upward. So in that way, I can see the Syracuse Orange coming out playing fast and loose, not worrying about losing streaks in championship droughts. So while I don't think Syracuse will win this weekend, I do think they'll play very well and put themselves in a really good position to do so. And I obviously, I hope they do. And Brad, we move on to Syracuse football. Official visit season is about to start, and Syracuse's 2026 class currently ranks 16th in the country according to Rivals, with 16 commits in the class so far. Brad, your thoughts on Syracuse football heading into what will be a very busy recruiting season?
Well, certainly the trend I see, Wes, is athleticism, speed, better athletes overall. I think you'd agree as you dive into this day in and day out and have a chance to speak to these players and their excitement overall. We see that same theme. But I was just taking another look at the list of 26 recruits and the ones that have given verbal commitments to this point. And I just see speed and athleticism. And I see that pipeline to Florida is really increasing. I saw John Garcia of Rivals really made a point of it. And I know that when the Rivals analysts nationwide speak to you and we get reports back from them that they're highlighting Syracuse with the great Southeastern Conference programs and the other national players, the ones that we know have played in the college football playoff and have been competing for championships the last couple of years, that Syracuse football is back when we see it in that regard. And I know you can dig a little deeper for us here on some of that specific talent we're talking about that stand out. We know the 4-star players that have committed, but the others that are considering Syracuse going into the summer.
So, Brad, a couple recruiting notes here as official visit season begins. I had a chance to speak with Zakir Leaks, Pennsylvania athlete from Harrisburg, and he said that of all the colleges that he has interest from, quote, Syracuse is the one in most contact, end quote. He's definitely someone who's been very interested in the Orange for quite some time. He always speaks very highly of the staff when I talk to him. He's going to be on campus for a June 6th official visit. Another guy we speak to a lot, and you just mentioned the Florida pipeline, 2026 defensive back CJ Hester from Cocoa, Florida. He's repeatedly told the Juice Online that Syracuse ranks very high in his recruitment. Orange has been one of the schools most in contact, but they're going to have to hold off the Florida schools here. And a third guy I wanted to highlight is another Florida prospect, 4-star defensive lineman James Johnson from the Miami, Florida area. He's previously visited Syracuse. He's got over 40 offers, but Syracuse was able to line him up for an OV on the May 30 weekend. So just a lot of fun things coming up for Syracuse. And speaking of recruiting, 2026 athlete Julius Padron recently received an offer from Syracuse. We'll speak to him after the break. This is the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng here with you. We're happy today to be joined by 2026 athlete Julius Padron, who recently picked up an offer from Syracuse. Congratulations on it. What do you think of the offer?
I thought it was really good. Like, I felt like, I talked to a couple of coaches there, and I felt welcome in how they brought me in and how they communicated with me, like, through the whole process,
Julius, you just mentioned a couple of the coaches. Which one did you speak with, and what did you guys speak about?
Coach White, low-key, he's a good guy. He's hella funny, and he welcomed me in, watched my film, thought I was a, elite player, and thought I could, do something for their defense. And I feel like I can bring something to the table, and, I appreciate everything he's been doing for me.
When you're looking at a school, what are the factors that you're considering?
Looking forward in a school that's going to benefit me and, like, my family, and, that's the first thing, my family. I want them to, feel welcome too at the same time, and keep them, like, motivated that, I'm going to do good at Syracuse if I go, and that I'm going to be successful and be positive around, the community and the family over there.
Julius, I know you play both sides of the ball. Tell me about the kind of football player you are.
I'm a dual threat. I like playing offense and defense. I'm a leader. I like to lead people, and if they mess up, like, okay, we got another play. We got 4 quarters, and we got more games to play. Like, don't leave your head on just one thing. Like, I like to be positive and direct so people don't affect the team.
Okay, so what positions do you play on the field on offense and defense?
I play a couple positions. Offense, I'm a running back mainly, but I do play the slot, and then on defense, I play safety and corner.
Yeah, so Julius, how do you approach being a defensive back?
I'm a man coverage guy. I like to be physical off the line. I like, if you can't get off the press, then you ain't going nowhere. So it's like you got 4 seconds to throw the ball. So I like being physical and up front with wide receivers, especially tall, lanky people.
Julius, you hold a Syracuse offer. You have several others. What are your top schools right now?
Right now, my top ones I've been talking to have been Washington State and you guys. And right now, I've been getting confirmation from San Diego State and Sac State right now. But those are the only 2 that's kind of, like giving a wheel right now, but, kind of on and off right now because, I like to have like my options open and feel welcome, you know.
Julius, we'll get you out of here on this one. What's your timeline for a college decision?
I'm gonna be completely honest. Probably in January or probably March.
Julius, thank you so much for coming on the program. We'll catch up with you soon. Good luck.
Okay, sounds good.
Julius Padron, ladies and gentlemen, certainly thank him for coming on the program, and we'll see if Syracuse can continue that West Coast pipeline. We're going to take a break, but still to come, Syracuse is in search of a new women's lacrosse coach. This is the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng alongside Brad Bierman. Brad, we're right at the end of our show. Your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are off the ACC spring meetings last week in Florida. The confirmation, we had heard the week before that, Wes, that the ACC is down to an 18-team conference basketball schedule beginning next year from 20, freeing up 2 other games for each of the 18 teams to schedule. So which direction will Syracuse go now? That to me is going to be interesting. Of course, they're playing in that packed Las Vegas tournament, multiple games, at Thanksgiving time in November. So it's going to be interesting to see. The reason for, of course, doing this, more teams from the ACC have to be there, not being on the bubble for the NCAA tournament, but more safely in the field by winning games in the regular season. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction Syracuse goes in strength of schedule, non-conference schedule, but also at the same time having a fair chance to win and get over the 20-win mark in the regular season.
Yeah, so critical for Adrian Autry to get to that 20-win mark in his 3rd season, especially after a losing record. And Brad, Syracuse women's lacrosse coach Kayla Trainer heading to Penn State. Syracuse announcing on Wednesday that they're looking for a new women's lacrosse coach. Trainer's team just finished the season with a disappointing 10-9 record, losing to number 7 Yale in the NCAA tournament. Here's a name I want to throw out there. Stony Brook women's lacrosse coach Joe Spallino, who needs no introduction to Syracuse fans. Let's see who they ultimately go with. That's it for us. For Brad Bierman, this is Wes Cheng. You've been listening to the Juice on the Cuse podcast presented by Believe in Rivals, and we will see you next time.